single moment of every single day, we are given the choice to have fun and do things that light our hearts up. But most of the time, is that what we're choosing? We are not taking enough advantage of our short time here on earth to have fun, to follow our bliss, to do things that truly light our heart on fire. But most of the time, we really seem to go through the motions in a really robotic way. So the first step to choosing more joy in your life is simply through mindfulness, being aware that you do have a choice. And many times mindfulness requires us to slow down, to breathe, to step out of our patterns, our programs, and our routines. Because you can't choose a different path if you don't even realize it's a choice. Mindfulness practices like meditation, breath work, even just walking in nature and enjoying your surroundings can do wonders for awakening us. And it's not just about when you're in that meditative state, it's actually preparing us to integrate those ideas into our waking life. These practices prime our minds for making more conscious and awake decisions in the everydayness of our lives. About 10 years ago, I was married, I was a wife, a mother to a young daughter, and a full-time career in corporate America. On paper, I had it all, but I would drive home from work almost every day, and I would park, and I would just sit in the car. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't really know why, but I really enjoyed those moments of sitting in the car, and I almost dreaded walking up the stairs and into my front door. The people behind that door loved me. They needed me, but yet I still didn't want to go. I just didn't want to do it. So one day, I asked myself, why? Why am I sitting out here in the car? Why is there some level of existential dread about walking in that door? And through that simple query of why, I started to unravel a whole bunch of things that I was doing in a very robotic, programmed, and automated way. I realized I was deeply unhappy, and it wasn't the fault of the people behind the door. You see, I was going through life almost like an actor. I was playing a role that I thought the world wanted of me, but it wasn't true to my heart. It didn't light up my soul. I had become so detached to my own intuition, from my joy and from my heart, that I couldn't even put together why it was that I felt so bad moments before walking in my front door. Once I realized this, I simply could not look away. I had to dig deeper. I had to keep asking myself, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? Why am I reacting this way to a situation? Why am I saying what I'm saying and doing what I'm doing, especially when I started to feel that my heart was not aligned to the person that I was showing up as in the world? And sometimes when you ask why, you get an immediate answer. You know, your intuition wakes up and tells you, and you can feel it in your body. Other times, you won't get the answer immediately. You'll sit in a little bit of confusion, and that's okay, because just posing the question why does a number of things. Number one, it encourages mindfulness more. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. So the more that you pause and ask why, you will in turn be, number one, slowing down your process and taking yourself out of the automation. And secondly, it will naturally start to unravel your intuition and allow it to rise up and bring the answers to you. You might not get them immediately when you ask why, but a day later you might be driving and your mind might be occupied on something else, and suddenly you have this realization and this knowing about your motivation behind a circumstance. And you wouldn't have had that thought, it wouldn't have gotten triggered if you didn't start to question these things. Asking why leads you to making more aligned decisions. It allows you to see your patterns, which is the third way, to get you back on the path to leading a more joyful and fulfilling life. As humans, we have a lot of programmed, patterned responses to things. They come from trauma, childhood, our deepest fears. Many of them can even come from past life experiences. It's built into our DNA to respond to certain situations in certain ways. The human mind is extremely trainable and programmable, like a computer. Many times we create these patterns essentially to keep us safe. But in time, these patterns can become outdated. They can be over-exaggerated. They can be triggered, and you can have a reaction to something that comes from a pattern, that comes from past trauma, that doesn't even match the reality of the situation you're in. If we don't become aware of these patterns and programs, they will continue to exist and continue to trigger and continue to essentially control our lives in a very robotic fashion. We will continue with the automated responses that we've created to keep ourselves safe. Sometimes these patterns show up in seemingly little inconsequential choices throughout your day and throughout your life, but when they build upon each other, they start to create significant patterns that will show themselves in many parts of your life. Maybe you start to notice these patterns coming to life in your intimate relationships, and maybe then you start to notice the same pattern is happening with your boss at work, or with your child, or with your mother or father. If you don't take the time to ask why and discover what these patterns are trying to tell you, you don't have the opportunity to make a different choice. Because ultimately, one of the keys to living a more joyful and blissful life is to make choices that are aligned and support that come from our hearts, that come from our intuition, that are true to who we actually are, not who we think we're supposed to be. Choices that come from an inner connection with yourself rather than from fear programming. So what do we have to do in order to choose different for ourselves, in order to break the pattern? We have to invoke courage. Because remember, these patterns were developed due to fear and past experiences. And we need to be mindful of that and loving to ourselves. It is hard to break patterns that have been developed to keep us safe because we want to continue to feel safe. But we also have to remember that change doesn't always come from taking the safe route. Perhaps staying safe is holding us back from greater joys and bigger experiences that we can have within this life. Maybe it's stopping us from viewing life as an experiment. Rather than being a victim where things happen to us, life starts to happen for us. A great example of this is people pleasing. Many of us become people pleasers in childhood. We think we people please because we want to make others happy. That seems legit and wholesome, right? On the surface, sure, it is nice to make others happy or think that we can control the happiness of others. But when you actually ask why around people pleasing, you may learn that what you're doing and your actions aren't actually coming from the wholesome place of wanting someone else's life to be better or easier. When we look into people-pleasing patterns and motivations, generally you find that the motivation to do that actually comes from your own ego and your own wanting life to be easier by keeping others happy. By pleasing others, we can avoid the discomfort that comes with people being angry with us. We can avoid tension. We can avoid conflict, which are all uncomfortable but temporary feelings. Especially if you had a childhood that had significant trauma or anger, your inner child really just wants to be safe. So we hold on to this idea that if we just act the way that other people want us to act, that they will in turn not get angry, not cause conflict, and keep us safe. But is that fulfilling? Is that really aligned to what brings you joy? Back to my earlier example of not wanting to get out of the car when I got home from work. When I dug into that more, I realized that whenever I walked into that door, I became a different person. I put my own needs last to serve others and keep them happy. I was living the life of the wife, the mom, the corporate career woman climbing the ladder, but it was really just an archetype that I was trying to live up to. It wasn't what my soul wanted. It was what society wanted. It was what my mom wanted. It was a story of what others wanted for me because they thought it would keep me safe too. Playing that role pleased others. It avoided conflict. And bits of it here and there were fulfilling, like I do have fulfillment from being a mother. However, the overall situation and playing that role that wasn't true to my authenticity did not bring me joy. I was choosing to keep myself enslaved to a story where I had to be what other people wanted me to be. So to undo that, I really had to start living life for myself, doing things that brought me joy. And you know what? It rubbed people the wrong way. Because the hard truth is, no one is for everyone. You just can't please everyone. And in trying to do so, you will lose yourself in the process. Extreme cases of abuse aside, you will not die from the temporary discomfort caused by not pleasing people, by being yourself, by choosing yourself. And guess what else? This pattern can be broken by mindfully asking why, by making conscious choices, and ultimately by being brave enough to break the pattern. Because remember what courage is. It's not lack of fear. It's being afraid, but doing it anyway. If you want to live a happier, more fulfilled, purpose-driven life by breaking your patterns, limiting beliefs, and moving through your automated programming, guess what? I will soon be opening up my book for a limited amount of one-on-one coaching clients. Go ahead and follow, like, subscribe. Join my email list so you can be the first to know, and jump on a discovery call with me, because remember, let it flow, because it won't stop.